Mick, how are you?
Much better than last week, surprisingly.
Hey, I was going to say, can you see our listeners told you last week, if you got a haircut, the rest will just take care of itself, Mick, and it did.
And I did, and I got a haircut, and I've had a heap of chocolate, and the chocolate was good, and the big rabbit came on the right evening, and in fact, we played Easter Sunday, so therefore I had all the grandchildren over and three of my four children over on Saturday night. And it was a very pleasant, it turned out to be a very pleasant weekend.
We want to talk about AFL issues, but we want to give you the right because Carlton did have a good bounce back. Your skipper just ran his guts out. Warnock's best game for the club. Gibbsy was back. You can go on and on, Hendo and Waite. And it was a confidence thing, and we spoke about it last week, Mick, and it did turn around pretty quickly, didn't it?
Well, yeah, and it's got to continue, otherwise it becomes a waste. But I'm not the first to say that confidence is one of those things that you don't know where it comes from, you don't know where it goes to, but you certainly know when you haven't got it, and you know a team that has got it. So we gained. I don't think there's any secret in the fact that if you're going to keep working, though, we've worked hard. There hasn't been a week when we've said, "Oh, look, we've been slack." But I reckon if you just keep at things, I think those things sort of make you a bit stronger, and I think we gained a lot of strength from one another because internally we were very, very strong. And there was a lot of pot shots at us from the various sources and so forth. And in many respects there's a lot of warranted criticism, but there's also patched in between a lot of agendas, and I think the players realise that. No, it's not that we don't go and grit the teeth even further because of that, but we just persist with what you're doing. And look, both of you guys have played, and when you talk to people who have played, we've all had flat spots, and the most important thing is that you never lose faith or you don't lose respect for people inside your organisation, and that we just kept on keeping on. And as it turned out, we're able to turn around our fortunes against a very good football side and a very well coached side.
Sounds like you got a response out of your leaders and your leadership group, Mick.
Very handy, of course, when your leaders do grab hold of the occasion. I think there's a lot of mystique about leadership that sometimes they flip the coin, go out there and run around, and you say, "Oh, we'll judge it on that particular game." Bone, you've been a captain for a long time, bro. I don't know. You didn't.
I was a vice captain. Never got to the dizzy heights of Bone.
My under-14 day was my last day over, captain. But Wendouree West too. Didn't have a great year, but anyway. History lesson. No, I think that when you look at some captains, though, it's the work they do off the field with their teammates that really is encouraging. And Mark Murphy's just one of those blokes. He's relentless there. He just works with his teammates to make sure that they know that he's there with them and that sort of stuff. So I'm delighted the way he's coming on as a leader.
Is there more you're looking for a response this weekend as well, that it's not just a one-hit wonder? Sometimes winning one game is easy.
Well, one game's not easy, but the second one becomes what it does. It gives you a blend of that's how it's like. What's what you feel like when you've lost. This is what you feel like when you've won. That's what we did when we lost. This is what we do when we won. So you do it. You do a little bit of a tick list, and all of a sudden you find yourself saying, "Well, look, there's no real secret to this. This just gets down to belief, hard work, meeting the requirements of your game structure, and then just look. There's certain stages where you go, look, they're the three components we're going to go out with, and we're just going to go with it. Yeah. And if the opposition are better than us, and I would say this year, 9 times out of 10, 8 times out of 10, the best side, the best team, the side that's got the best players will win. And that's almost logical. Yeah. It's illogical to think otherwise. But there is 2 out of 10 that you might. The gap is not great, and you're able to get a win, and they're the best wins. They're the greatest wins because people have often asked me who's the best coach you've ever coached against. I said that's the easiest answer in the history of the world. The hardest coach to coach against is the guy with the best side.
Mick, we got some audio here I want to get your comment on. We've heard a few people suggest that Hawthorn coach Alistair Clarkson in his after-match presser had a bit of a side swipe at you for playing Chris Judd because he rested Brian Lake. Have a listen to this, we'll get your thoughts.
It's just foolish from a coaching perspective to play a guy that's played so little game time for the season thus far. And does it mean that we lose a game of footy? Possibly. We're more prepared to lose a game of footy than we are losing a player that's not conditioned properly to play.
I heard you at your presser after match. You answered it well, but what do you say about Alistair Clarkson's side swipe?
Oh, what? Well, I'd be disappointed if that's a side swipe at Carlton. I think if he's having a go at Carlton, I'd be expecting him to stand up and say it's Carlton. He's not a back. He doesn't take backward steps. Alistair, I'm only. I don't want to draw any conclusions of this because it'll become a press issue. If he's referring to Lake, that's fine because he's talking about a player that they're quite comfortable in the knowledge that he may need work. There's certain players can come in, certain players can't. I will not lose 1 ounce of sleep on our decision to play Chris Judd. We said 6 to 8 weeks ago, or 6 weeks ago, whatever it was, this will be around about round 4, 5 before he comes back. It has turned out to be round 5, and that's exactly what the medical staff said. It's exactly what the fitness staff said. He has trained in that period. Now, he's only been on the track, as in football touch, for probably 10 of those days. The rest of it has been done on a massive amount of work. I think that if anyone wants to look at the mechanics of it, as Chris has said, and that was a ballistic piece of play, that not necessarily the fact that he was at full tilt, because it was three-quarter time and there was just before three-quarter time, so a lot of people were tired, and he was sharp. But when he got pushed in the back, have a look what happens to his leg. As he said to me today, he said, "I wish I now had fallen over." He said, "I wish I had tumbled." Because
he tried to keep his feet,
he tried to keep his feet, which great players do. And you'll just see that where his foot hits the ground and then his body lurches forward because of that exceptional pace and push, something's got to give. Now, that could happen, the training, it could have happened week 10, it could have whatever. I'm not prepared to get into an argument over that because I'm not too sure that's been a setup, not by you guys.
No.
Because I don't know what context Ellis is talking about. Now, he's talking about his player. I'll only talk about my players. And I'm sure he's talking about his players, and I'd be very surprised. I won't say disappointed. I'll be surprised that he's even thought about our player.
We got some audio on Juddy. He just said it was bad luck. Here it is.
I was really well conditioned. I hadn't done a lot of skills training with the team, but I've done a heap of running and a heap of leg strength work. So there was no issue with conditioning. Sometimes in footy you get put in positions that the human body can't tolerate, and that's just bad luck. So it certainly wasn't a lack of conditioning, and I wouldn't have been out there if I wasn't ready to go. Well
said, Juddy. Now, we want to move on because there's a huge debate in SA. We've got a lad up at the AFL Tribunal. It's going to start, well, it actually has started. Richard Douglas, he did a shepherd on Callum Ward. Accidentally, there was a head clash. It's up at the Tribunal, referred straight there from the MRP. Where do you sit on it? Did you see the incident, Mick?
I come in late and just saw it as a news item more than a part of the game. So it was pretty much I had a look at that and thought, okay, well, the one I get confused about is the Fife and his head contact with the player he bumped. Both players I don't know if both players come off. Both players really had a headache after it. And I just say, well, play on. The clash of the heads is... If there's a demonstration that the player has aimed for the head or taken a cheap shot, we all know what the consequences are. When it's a bump, I remember Jimmy Clement, one of the best players I've ever coached. Not only as a bloke. He bumped a player. His head shot across. They both collided. Jimmy came off with a broken cheekbone, and he was the bumper, and the other bloke was the bumped player. Now, that's the way it is. It's very hard to stop when you're running shoulder to shoulder, or when you hit shoulder to shoulder. There's going to be a sudden impact, and there's going to be heads frail into each other. We either make the rule there's no bumping, or you've got to live with some contact that's going to be a consequence of a bump.
Mick, that's the debate that I'm having. I'm with Bone and I'm saying we've read the rule, 15.4.4, charging or rough conduct. It says unreasonable or unnecessary, but I think if you bump fairly within 5 metres, which is a shepherd, which is in the rules, which Richard did, and you accidentally hit heads, there should be something written in the rules to allow for that. Bone's saying you choose to bump, you cop the consequences. Now, I think that's too harsh because ball players like Fife, ball players like a Murphy or a Hartlett last week and now a Richard Douglas are going to miss games for what I'm calling football accidents, Mick. They've just got to rewrite the rule.
Well, Rowie, now I'm going to be, no doubt you'll correct me on this. I lost a captain last year from a shoulder bump to the head by Hodge on Murphy, who cost him 4 to 5 weeks, I think. A broken cheekbone. My memory is I don't know whether he got reported.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't. Hodge didn't get a game for that.
Right. Now, am I advocating that he should have? No. Because it is a man's game. They put their head down together. One led with the shoulder and the other one led with his head. So I say, get your technique right. Don't penalise a player who goes with the shoulder there. But if it's a deliberate action to actually get someone in the head, we know the consequence. But when it's an action, so I just say if you're going to have these rules, implement something that says don't bump, you can't bump. Which
Make
would
it clear cut. Correct.
Take something away from our game that we've had for 150 years. I just don't get that. And the other thing I don't get is that if Westhoff bumps Jared Blair, where's he going to get him?
Yeah, can't avoid it.
Jared Blair's 5'8". Westhoff's say 6'6". And I use those two just because it comes to mind. If they collide, I'll guarantee that Blair's head hits Westhoff's mid-arm to shoulder. Well, does that mean he has to be penalised because he's 6'6"?
Mick,
so I just don't get it. I really don't get a lot of rules, and that's when I'm really disappointed in the way it's interpreted.
So Brian, mix with me.
What about, I guess where this one might be different, and I don't know what your opinion is, but what about when the player's got a decision to make, like he has an alternative to bumping? So the player is 5 metres, in this case he's 5 metres from the ball. He's not actively involved in the play. He's a passive observer that's jogging along 5 metres away and is completely oblivious to the contact.
No,
Old stage would have said, pick him off. Now?
Yep. No. Well, the rules are stated. 5 metres, anything outside 5 metres anything inside 5 metres is considered, and we can't even say fair game now, is bumpable. Outside 5 metres, you are a protected player. So therefore, if it is outside 5 metres, then you must suffer the consequences of your actions. You should block with your arm or whatever the case is. So it's outside 5 metres. I can accept the fact that someone is probably just a little bit less guarded and he feels comfortable enough. I'm outside 5 metres, I shouldn't have that body contact, albeit to the head. But if it's the body and it's a block, okay, I can live with that. But inside 5 metres, the prep that I say to every player that comes into my football club is expect contact, son. Don't get inside 5 metres and expect that you're going to have. It's like the ball that falls in the back line. The big fullback picks it up and thinks he's got a month to kick it, and all of a sudden he gets nabbed by some little forward pocket player that strips him the ball and is holding the ball. Expect contact. 5 metres, expect contact.
What are you telling your players about the bump, Mick? Because Ross Lyon said he doesn't want it anymore.
Yeah, but maybe, I'm not going to second guess Ross Lyon, but I'll just say maybe he doesn't want it because the inference is that if you do bump, you're going to go.
Correct.
I reckon he's going about 5. I reckon he's talking about 5. Yeah. He's a ball-getting player. He concentrates on the ball. He wouldn't set out to hurt anyone. He just wants to bump because, you know what, at 5 when he was playing football, when it was non-contact Oz kick, he was still bumping. Because everyone grows up playing football that bumps.
I know. It's ridiculous. And that's the irony. You can't tackle when you're a kid, but you can bump. And then when you get in the AFL, they're telling you to tackle at every cost and don't bump. It's ridiculous.
Look, if you've got your head over the football, we don't want to see anyone get hit by knee, hip or shoulder. We do not want that.
Yeah. So, Mick, you're with me. Yeah, you're with me. You want the rule tightened up. This is the rule 15.4.4 charging, which is rough conduct, that allows for or caters for size in players and, for me, for accidental head clashes where two heads hit each other. We think the game should allow for football accidents. Do you agree with that?
I do.
Done.
They're accidents.
They're accidents, Bone.
Do you think it's a case? Do you think it's a case you're going to win?
No.
Or the football, yeah.
I don't think so.
No. You can't win. So if you're not going to win it, if we're not going to win that rally, ban bumping. If we can't win on that point that you've just made, ban bumping, and that then makes it a rule.
Yeah. Hey, there was a bit of goal line technology stuff-ups. We had one at Adelaide Oval. There was a bad one with Frawley. Yeah, we heard that mid-year the goal line technology is going to be at the MCG and Etihad Stadium. Well, they're going to get one on every ground, Mick.
Don't do anything unless you can do it at every. Do not bring in Don't out in the Falls only going to apply to Football Park, Subiaco, and Gold Coast. Yep. All the rest of the grounds is going to be okay. So there's no out in the full in any other ground.
Yep. Do you agree, Bun?
So in other words, In other words, you can't have the consistency right across the board. Don't have it.
Yep. Hey, Mick, Bomber Thompson made a really interesting remark after their loss this weekend, saying he can't be the father to all the players, that he expects them to do some things that he doesn't instruct them to, like in terms of their recovery and how they look after their bodies. Can you take anything for granted as a coach? I mean, are you prepared to take anything for granted as a coach?
I guess the maturity of the side is a wonderful thing to have, because generally when you get a mature side, you've got players who are at top end, who are probably leaders, and set an example that says, "Hey, listen, boys, this is the way we run things. This is what's got to be done." There is certain things, I guess, when you're talking to 18, 19, 20-year-olds who are still learning the game.
Yep.
That do or don't I? 6-day break, 7-day break. Can I have a beer? Can I do this? Do I have to get in the water? Sometimes you got to spell things out, but I'm a bit of agreement that there comes a time of trust. There comes a time that you sign off at some certain stage as a coach and go, righto, now we're looking for common sense. And you try to teach common sense, but let's face it, it's not that common. There's a growth area too, that people got to grow, and you've got to have. I'm a great believer in trust. I think if you don't trust people and don't trust players, they don't grow, and there is some sort of thing called responsibility that says you are responsible for your actions, and that's sometimes a growth area as well. So I think it depends on how you handle it.
Breaking news, sorry Mick, for North Point Trader. Manchester United's manager David Moyes is 1 year into a 6-year deal. He's Gonski sacked. They've just sacked him. David Moyes.
Second year, isn't it?
Is this his second year or first year?
First year.
Oh, he's into his first year. Nearly
the end of
finished
his first year.
This is his first year, and he's had a 6-year contract.
6-year contract, and they've just clipped him.
That makes me feel ill.
Yeah.
Because that bloke, it's funny, because I've probably been too long in the game, perhaps, maybe I have. But I watched that bloke coach his first game. I watched him coach his first game, and I watched Alex, that name's dropping. I've had an opportunity to meet Sir Alex Ferguson and spend some time with him. He endorsed him as a fellow Scot to come across and coach, and I watched that young man go from deep red head to a very grey person very quickly, but his team were highly disciplined, didn't have the money of anyone else, but really competitive. I think they're in the top 6 now. Everton, he come from Everton, and he was outstanding. He's had a year when there was a massive decline in a lot of Manchester United players in terms of age, and other clubs spent big, and he's tried to impose his own game plan, which is, that's his right. He's the coach. I feel it's so flippant and so easy at 34th week in a 38-week season, just to sack the coach. And I hope now that he absolutely scorches him with his contract. And if the owners are as rich as they make out they are, well, you know what, he'll just get paid out and be another forgotten number. But I'd say to Dave Moyes, this is not Marshall here at this point, because he can coach. Yeah.
Hey, Mick, well done as always. All the best this week, and we'll speak to you next Tuesday.
Good on you, lads. Look forward to it.
Fantastic.
Good on you, Mick.